wants it. All right, buddy, time to get up. Oh my God. I can't even explain how large and how heavy this cat is. He is 6 months old. He's absolutely enormous for a 6-month-old cat. Like, he's so heavy. I love that cat. He's so sweet and docile and just like the perfect cat. Also, setting up for this video, I think I actually like broke my toe. No joke, with the book. I dropped Funny Story, which ironic title to drop and cause damage, but I dropped my hardcover Funny Story and the corner of the hardcover book landed in the joint of my 2 toes, and I'm like genuinely believe they're broken. Yeah, it's actually broken. So let's begin. I am breaking out the desk chair today, and it does, I'm realizing, squeak. Like, so if you hear that throughout the video, please ignore it because I can't fix it before we start, and this is gonna be a long one, so I need to sit. I thought it'd be fun to just kind of sit down and talk about all of the signed books I've collected over the year because I ended up gathering way more than I ever expected. So basically this all started because I had just created my BookTok account. I wanted to use it to promote my book, but I also wanted to use it to talk about books that I love. And I knew if I didn't have like a dedicated series, I wouldn't post. And I also just really needed an incentive to get out of the house. So I needed something to just kind of like put me back into my travel mood and get that bug going again. And so I thought something I have always wanted to do since I was a kid was go to author signings, and I'm finally in the circumstances where I can do that. So I said on TikTok, I'm gonna give myself 1 year to go to as many of my favorite author signings as I can. And I ended up doing way better than I expected on that goal. Posted more details about like each signing, like videos and recaps and things like that on my TikTok. I thought it'd be really fun to just kind of sit down and actually talk about my experiences, talk about the pros and cons, give you tips on if you're interested in going to more author signings, let you know the good, the bad, and yeah, we can kind of just start a conversation about your experiences with book signings too, because I love reading your comments. So, get cozy, get a drink, and let's begin talking about signed books. So the very first book signing that I got tickets for was one I was absolutely incredibly excited about. I love the author Sarah Adams. You can see one of her books is up there. I have more, but oh, see, one of them fell. Hold on, let me fix this so you can see. Sarah Adams is now on full display. I really truly love her books. I think that they are so cute. I think the majority of them are closed door, and then a few of them have been more open door recently. So if you're interested in closed door romances, she is a author I always recommend for that because her stories are so cute, so great. I think she's just a fun author. She had a book signing at the Rip Bodice in New York City. Fun fact about me, I've always wanted to go to New York City as an adult. I went as a child and I don't remember anything about it, and I always said, hey, when I go to New York City, my top spot to go is going to be the Rip Bodice because I just absolutely think that that looks like an amazing bookstore to visit. So I had just started off this journey of book signings for a year, meeting authors I love, and I knew if I didn't just book one, I would lose my motivation and I wouldn't do it. So I booked tickets for me and a friend to go to this Sarah Adams signing in New York City at the Rip Bodice. Very long, very complicated story made short. That all fell apart for various reasons, the largest one being that friendship ended. Unfortunately, it did end, and I did not go to the signing. So I ended up emailing the Rip Bodice, and I just said, you know, hey, I'm not expecting a refund, but I can't make it, so you should give those tickets to somebody else. And they responded with, well, we can go ahead and give the tickets to somebody else, but would you like us to just send you your signed book of Sarah Adams? And I said, absolutely, I would. Obviously, I did pay for it, but they were generous enough to have Sarah Adams still sign a book for me and send it in the mail. So that is how I have a copy of the rule book. And I am so, so happy I have this copy. It was the very first one that I got on this journey, and even though it came in the mail, it really incentivized the rest of the year, because opening it up and seeing that, a signature from an author I love, and it came with this little like card as promo for the book, was just incredible. I absolutely loved it. So beyond excited to get this in the mail, and after all that I'd been through leading up to trying to get to this book signing, it felt so relieving and just hopeful to still receive my signed book from Sarah Adams in the mail. So I attribute this book and this signed book to pushing me through the last year of reaching my goal, and staying very hopeful during some pretty hard times. So book number 1 on my 1 year signed books journey was The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. So a common thing that I do when I'm trying to find book signings, and maybe this is kind of a tip and a hack for you if you're also interested in going to more author signings, is unfortunately nobody signs books where I live. I don't really understand why, because I have a couple major cities around me, but there are no drivable book signings. I say drivable. There are no book signings within like 2 hours of me ever. It's incredibly frustrating sometimes, but the plus side of that is I can kind of say, okay, this is an area I've always wanted to go to. This is an area I've always wanted to use as a vacation. Who is going to be signing in that area in the next X amount of months? And if I can see that an author will be having a book signing in that area within that amount of time, I can kind of just 2-in-1 the situation. I can make it a trip as well as a book signing. So you're gonna see that that's like a common theme throughout all of these, is that it was like I wanted to go to this town and there happened to be a book signing of an author I knew there. So next on the list, books 2 and 3 were Call It What You Want and The Very First Night. Basically, I wanted to go to Wilmington, North Carolina for a very, very long time, and I had seen this author on TikTok quite a bit because she started out as a self-published author, got picked up for traditional publishing. I loved the idea of the story. She very heavily promoted it with Taylor Swift. I was just starting out on my self-publishing journey, so I found that very inspiring. And I said, you know what? Let's just go, because why not? This is going to be my first in-person book signing ever. So I went for this one, and then this author was there with her. The Very First Night by Nicole Ryan. I did not know anything about this author prior to the book signing. You had the option to only get one book. Obviously, I wasn't going to do that. I wanted to support her as well. I had come all that way. I was going to get both books signed. Able to get this one signed, and she personalized it with Never Settle. There's that one. And then for Nicole Ryan, we have this. So this is a really interesting situation. One thing I try my absolute hardest on my social media is to never be negative. I think there is plenty of negative people out there. We don't need more. However, I do feel that this is a great opportunity for me to provide a warning, and that your time and your money are very valuable, and you should really do the proper research and the thorough examination of where you're going, who you're spending time and money on before committing, because I didn't do my research prior to this, and I just assumed it was going to be a traditional publishing experience, a traditional book signing experience. I thought that I would go and there would be more like people there, more discussion, more a conversation with the authors about their books, because that in my experience has been a lot more of what the book signing times have been. Not just here's your book, now leave. It's very much like a conversation. You get to hear your author speak, you get to meet them a little bit more. This was, and again, this is my own fault, I didn't do enough research, I didn't know. This was a very, very, very small bookstore. There was basically nobody there, not by the author's fault, but because they were kind of just like corralling them in and out. It was very much like you show up, you walk in, you place your book on the table, or you don't even place the book on the table. The author had stacks next to them. They ask your name. I tried to talk to them and we didn't have a conversation at all. Not even a little bit. Shut down very quickly. You buy your books, you're out. It was so interesting. And again, I'm not upset because I didn't do my proper research. I didn't know what to expect. It was my very first book signing, so I was kind of going into it blind. And I still very much got to enjoy a weekend trip to Wilmington, North Carolina, which is a beautiful beach town. But I feel that it is a good opportunity for me to warn you that because your time and money are so valuable, make sure that what you're signing up for and what you're paying for is going to gratify what you're hoping for. Because I had hoped for more, and this book signing wasn't it. I literally spent 15 minutes total on this book signing. I'm pretty sure if it was 15 minutes, that's being generous, to be honest. Let's put it that way. I actually enjoy going on weekend trips with my mom because we both just like traveling and we both like just kind of getting away for the weekend, and we have a lot of fun traveling together. And she just likes coming on these book signings as well. She didn't get these books, she didn't get these ones signed, so she just kind of like waited just outside the door of the bookstore because it was so small. I walked out and she was like, "What are you doing out here? Did you even get your books signed?" It was quite the experience. So we did have a great weekend. We had fun in other ways, but this was a very, very brief blip in my life that I spent months planning. So my top tip for you, please, please, please make sure that you are thoroughly investigating the books. Make sure they're ones you're interested in, thoroughly investigating the author, make sure they're ones you're willing to and want to meet, and thoroughly investigate the actual signing and make sure that it is going to be worth your time and money, because those are two things that you can't get back. That being said, I'm very, very happy to have these on my shelf. I'm very happy that this was my first book signing experience because even though it was very short, I got to enjoy a wonderful weekend with my mom, and it's kind of just like our funny story now. Speaking of funny story, let's go a little bit backwards in time, talk about the book that just broke my toe. I completely forgot that this was after Sarah Adams, but before the Wilmington signing. So Emily Henry came out with Funny Story, and her publishing company did a whole like release party across the country thing. It mainly was centered around indie bookstores, so like local bookstores, no chains. I think they did do some chains, but it was mainly local bookstores to help support them. And they were doing like parties. So some places did more than others. My town, they did have one bookstore that participated, and it was very, very brief. It was very simple. Like, they didn't do any events for it. They kind of just did like, I think you could enter a giveaway and you can get like freebies, like bookmarks and stickers and things. So even though it was like pretty small and uneventful, it was actually really fun because I was able to go with my sister, and we both love Emily Henry and we just love like every story she puts out. And this ended up being my top read of 2024. So I was very, very happy to get this signed edition of it. So basically it was just a pre-signed edition that the publishers sent to local bookstores, and they called it like the Funny Story Party. It was a very cute little event that I was able to go to with my sister, get some freebies, and get a signed book of Emily Henry, which will probably never ever happen again because she is a really tough one to get a signed book for. So I cherish this one even though it just broke my toe. Now we're getting into the big chunk of all of my signed books because this is officially YALLFest. I heard about YALLFest for so long. I'd always wanted to go, and it was just never the right time. It was never possible for me until 2024. And it ended up being the best possible year for me to start out on. Not only because I had just self-published my book, so it was so exciting to find more readers for that, find people who had seen me online, meet them, see what they thought of the book, but also because there was a very inspiring author for me at this one. And that was Lauren Roberts. So I find Lauren Roberts' story incredibly exciting because she is a self-published author who managed to make it big. You know, her story just managed to get into the right hands, and she was traditionally picked up, and I obviously would love one day to be traditionally picked up, so that was incredibly exciting to me. So my very, very first author of YALLFest weekend was Lauren Roberts on Friday. It was such an incredible experience because it was actually at Mudhouse Coffee on King Street, where they have like a courtyard that goes around the back. It's an absolutely beautiful day, and we were able to just wait in line in this gorgeous courtyard. It was very quiet and nice, and it was actually really funny because I was speaking to this girl. She was a young girl in front of me, and we got talking. She ended up wanting my book, so I was able to give her a free copy. As we're talking about it, all of a sudden we see this person walk beside us. I mean, like, literally, we, like, brush shoulders. And I kind of look over, and I'm like, that looked like Lauren Roberts, right? And she's like, it was. Why is nobody reacting? So we were all in this line to get our book signed by Lauren Roberts. She walked right past us, and nobody reacted. It was the strangest experience of my life. So I'm like over here fangirling, and everybody's just standing there staring at her like, yeah, there she goes. And I'm like, what is happening? Anyways, felt like my first official book signing in a lot of ways, because even though I had been to the one at Wilmington, now that I've done a year of book signings, I can confidently tell you that the Wilmington book signing was such a unique experience that I've never had again. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm very grateful I've never had that again, and I hope I never do. So my very first official in-person book signing was Lauren Roberts. It was everything I had hoped it would be and more. She is just the sweetest person I think I've ever met. She was just so happy that everybody was there. She was so kind. Even though the line moved very, very fast, it felt like she was really giving your attention. So I was able to get Powerless and Reckless signed. And it ended up being such a fun experience as well, because again, my mom came with me because she had always wanted to see Charleston, and she just wanted to see YALLFest as well. And we actually listened to the audiobooks of this series on the way down. So it was really fun to be listening to it and be fully invested in the story, and then get there and have the book signed. So there is my signed book of Powerless, Reckless. I love these. And then this one isn't signed, but I include it in my signed stack because it's just such a fun experience and so random. That year at YALLFest, it was randomly very easy to get the giveaways, the art copies, everything like that. I have learned this year that is a unique experience. It's not always that easy. For some reason, last year it was very easy. So my mom and I were kind of just dividing and conquering the whole museum courtyard where they have the tent set up and you can get giveaways and stuff like that. And we were going around and we're just trying to get in lines, figure out what we can get. And all of a sudden my mom walks up to me and she says, I got you this bracelet. I have no idea what it goes to. They just told me to come back at I think it was 1 p.m. to the courtyard of the museum. Literally, we had no idea. We had no idea what it was. And she was like, I think it's Lauren Roberts, associated. And I was like, well, that's weird. I don't know what that would be because she's busy all day with signings and everything. So anyways, we show up and they take us to the courtyard, the inner courtyard of the museum. And they had it gated and you had to show your bracelet. It was super strange. We get there and they were like, okay, go to this booth and you can tell us who your favorite character is. Go to this booth, you can get a free sticky bun, and go to this booth and you get a free copy of Powerful. Because Powerful had just come out and they were giving away these copies. It was so cute. And this was my first ever YALLFest, so I was a little bit overwhelmed because it was just packed. I mean, it was absolutely packed. And so all of a sudden, just walking into this random courtyard and having this moment of just okay, this is so quiet, this is so peaceful, and you're just getting handed these sweet sticky buns and a free book. I had the time of my life. I truly did. So this is my copy of Powerful. It was not signed. It didn't come signed, but I just I include it in my stack on my science shelf because I just think it's such a fun experience. It was so cute, and it completes, well, it doesn't complete, but we'll get to later about completing the series. So when I put it on the shelf, it completes my Powerless series. Next on my YALLFest signing agenda, Alex Aster Lightlark. This one was one that was really interesting because I, in every other book signing, had read the books before. It was authors that I knew I wanted, and I didn't want to be greedy because they have like a limited amount of tickets. I wanted to make sure people who knew and loved the series were able to get their opportunities. However, Lightlark has been on my TBR, or had been on my TBR for years. Literally, at this point, it was years. Lightlark had been on my TBR. I always knew it was going to be a series that once I started it, I couldn't stop. I just absolutely devoured it. I had, to be honest, like read spoilers and just knew it was everything I wanted it to be and more. So I was like, okay, I'm getting this one. I am, because even though I might not have like read the series yet, it's going to be a favorite. So I did get the special edition of the Lightlark series. I just absolutely love like the sprayed edges on this one. I just think they're so beautiful. And I love the boxed edition. Like, that is stunning. Absolutely stunning. Congratulations, Alex Aster, on having an absolutely incredible publisher who is willing to do this, because 10 out of 10 production. I was able to go and get my book signed. There's still my sticky. I left it in there. And then there's her books. Because I hadn't read the series yet, I did just go and get the one. And let me tell you, Alex Aster is genuinely so nice. She was just so kind. She had nothing but good things to say. And when I walked up, she was just like complimenting me on my hair and my clothes and my everything. And I was just like, what are you doing? Like, I'm here to compliment you. I'm here to tell you that you're an incredible author, and you're just standing here trying to compliment me. And I know for a fact that she's nice because it was like everybody in line got the same amount of like kindness and generosity, and it was just so sweet. I absolutely just felt that she was so nice. And I actually went to a panel of hers that afternoon, and it was just so much fun. You could tell she just genuinely has such a strong passion for writing and really enjoys what she's doing for work. So I love to see that. As somebody who is constantly striving to make this my full-time job, I love to see when authors are genuinely passionate and fortunate and grateful for what they get to do. Next on the list for YALLFest signings, Victoria Aveyard. I read Red Queen when I was a teenager. Absolutely loved the series. I thought it was immaculately crafted. And it was one of those ones that I had just gotten from the library, so I never owned. So when I saw she was going to be at YALLFest, I wanted to have a special edition copy. So I got this one. I love the red sprayed edges, and there is artwork inside. See, there's like some little artwork inside, which I think is really cute. And then there is the signature. And then I have never read this series, but I knew I wanted to dive into that. I thought it would be really fun to have like one from each series, so I ended up getting Realmbreaker, the Realmbreaker signature. Victoria Aveyard was such a fun one to meet because the personality that she has in her TikToks and her social media presence is exactly the same as it was in person. She's spunky, she's witty, she's very funny. And so when I met her, I kind of walked up and I was like, okay, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna say? And before I could say anything, she said, do you have an itinerary for YALLFest? It kind of threw me. I was like, an itinerary? Like, I mean, I guess, yeah, I have like a plan for my weekend. She's like, oh, okay, good. The person just before you, she didn't have an itinerary, and I can't imagine going through this weekend without one. And we both just made like the funniest face and started laughing, and we were like, you can't survive this weekend without an itinerary. You have to have one. So this is the face that we made. I'll put the picture right here. That was the face that we both made at the idea of someone not having an itinerary at YALLFest, and that's like one of my favorite memories from the weekend. I just thought it was so funny to have like two book nerds like cringing at the idea of not having an itinerary for YALLFest. So that was very fun. It was a brief interaction, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I just think that her personality is just very fun. Next on my list for YALLFest signing, and I think last on my list? Yeah, okay, last on my list for YALLFest signings of 2024 was Rebecca Ross. So this was such an interesting experience for me. I still think about this one very often. I basically went up to the table with no expectations whatsoever. For some reason, my brain just didn't know what to say to her. As I was walking up, it just kind of like shorted out, and I was like, you know, all the typical things of I love your books, I love this, I love that. It just went out the window. And I don't know what it was about her. She just felt very like warm and comforting. And I walked up and she was like, "Hi, it's so nice to meet you." And I was like, "Hi, I'm trying to be an author. What advice do you give me?" I have no idea why I said that to her. I have no idea. The entire weekend, my mom and I kept joking. We were like, "Oh, I should ask them how to get published." And it was a joke. It was genuinely a joke, because the thing that we kept saying is we were like, these people are so busy. There are hundreds of people in these lines. Like, they can't take the time to talk to you. And the fact that they're even willing to have the type of conversation that they do of like, "Hi, nice to meet you. Oh, I love this character, blah, blah, blah," like answer a brief question, is generous, to be honest, because of how much they pack their schedule over this weekend. And the one thing I kept saying is don't ask them questions, especially about publishing, because they're probably so sick of it. And I just kept telling myself, don't do it. For whatever reason, something about Rebecca Ross, I walked up to her table and all of that just went away. And I asked her the question that I said I wasn't going to ask. And I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. But she was the nicest, the absolute nicest, kindest, most generous author of the entire weekend. I still often think about how just immaculately like she presents herself to the public, and it was just, she was just so kind. She was so kind. So even though I was clearly embarrassed, she really took the time to actually answer my question and to genuinely tell me her advice and tell me what she thinks was the most helpful for her in her publishing journey. And I might have been like kind of blacking out in that moment and only remember bits and pieces, but I just most of all remember how she really took her time answering that question and really took her time considering it. And I found that so generous and so thoughtful when she was so busy. And yes, I felt horrible for the people behind me, but I also was just so grateful for her for actually answering rather than just kind of brushing me off and sending me on my way. So Rebecca Ross's signing was incredible. So there's that. Book 2. So if you ever have a chance to go to one of Rebecca Ross's signings, I highly, highly recommend going to hers because it was just so nice. Round out the year of book signings, my very last book signing of the year, Lauren Roberts again, but this time for Fearless. I have always wanted to go to the Bookhouse Hotel in like just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I just thought it looked like the absolute dream online. It's like every book lover like dream place to visit. And so when I saw Lauren Roberts had a stop in Pittsburgh and I knew it was drivable to stay in the hotel and go to the signing, I was like, done. We're doing it. So I went to the Bookhouse Hotel, just as beautiful as it looks online. Okay, so this one was different. I will say this. So with YALLFest, you like went up to the table, you got your book signed, you got your chance to talk to the author, and then you left. This one was different, I think, because it was such a large crowd and she's such a large author, and it's just a different format than YALLFest, where you walk in and you scan your ticket, and they give you your book. And there were like goodies in the hallway or whatever, and then you get your seat in the theater. And it was actually like 45 minutes to an hour, I don't remember how long, of her like answering questions, explaining how she created the series, explaining her writing process. She did like a fun trivia game, things like that. And even though they were both incredibly different experiences, I love them both equally. I truly do. I thought that this was such a fun experience as well, Maybe if I hadn't had the chance to like meet her and speak to her, that would have been more disappointing. Because I already had done that, I really enjoyed going to this theater, hearing her talk, because I really love hearing writers talk about their processes and their publishing experiences and things like that. So I really loved going and doing that, and I got to complete my Powerless series, so everything but the novella is signed, and I just love that I have a fully completed and signed series on my bookshelf, especially by an author that I love, especially from a series that I love. I just think that was very satisfying. So there's my little like goodie giveaway. There's a couple more stickers and stuff on my shelf. And then there is my last Lauren Roberts signed book. For now, please put out more books, Lauren Roberts. I beg of you. You're an incredible writer. So those are all of my books that I got signed in like the 1-year goal, starting in 2024, ending a little bit in 2025 because of the Fearless book signing. But that rounded out my full year of trying to see how many books I can get signed. It was the best experience. I had so much fun. I truly loved it. I'm so glad I pushed myself out of my comfort zone and completed the goal of doing all of that in a year. I met some incredible authors who really truly inspired me in my publishing journey. And yeah, I had the best time ever. I'm so glad I did it. And I actually was able to go back to YALLFest again this year. So even though I didn't have as many like individual book signings throughout the year, I had one very large haul of signed books this year at YALLFest. I actually got more books signed this year than I did last year. So check back in. I'm going to post that video very soon of recapping all of the authors that I met this year, all of the experiences, and let me tell you, it was a wild one this year.